All right, MA Marignon, turn 62, fighting against Phlegra. We're also harassing some trolls. So it looks like Asphodel managed to grab another throne. That is not great, since you were pretty worried about them. But it's not the end of the world. We're trying to do some arcane probing. This is in Phlegra's land. We're not really finding anything, so it does look like either Phlegra didn't get any astral or they did a good job site searching. We're bringing in some wolves. This is on top of Bandar Log, just for some extra patrollers, and then potentially we'll use that werewolf as a thug in an upcoming war against Asphodel that we are thinking about. We did a ton of site searching, which was mostly useless, but we did find one, Labyrinth of Skulls. This sounds like death gems to me, and that is good. We like death gems. But yeah, definitely a bit of a rough turn for site searching, but that's how it goes sometimes. Up to 3 blood hunters now. Still pretty trickle of blood income, but that's okay. I'm still trying to sort out exactly how we're going to take advantage of this, because other than on our pretender, we don't really have any blood other than the Garnet Amazons, who are not particularly high level blood, so I guess perhaps just empowering them is the route to go. Certainly we could do some lifelong protections, and that will probably be where our initial income goes to, but past that I'm still not sure what we're going to be doing. And then let's see. Okay, good, we didn't bump against Xibalba. I forgot to tell them that we're going to be trying to get that super combatant, that this is in one of their cap circle provinces. So yeah, it looks like Phlegra didn't leave any province defense, and they did manage to move out before we could catch them. And then speaking of catching things, we caught a battle between Asphodel and Vanheim. This is Asphodel on the attack. Yeah, just counter-raiding one of the Vanheim raids. And it looks like Vanheim chose not to hang out, but they did choose to use some province defense. Although, yeah, Centaur are pretty good. So I don't think this is going to work out for Vanheim. Yeah, it's pretty tough to outraid Asphodel, I would say. Well, I mean, I actually don't know that. Like, Asphodel might be really hurting on gold at this point, but, thinking about them like Pangea raids really well. Of course, so does Vanheim. So yeah, there's probably going to be a lot of raiding back and forth. Speaking of raiding, we saw this group last time. I believe they knocked out a super combatant. No such super combatant here. There's just probably like 10 province defense, and I think they're going to have no problem with it, although they may lose some bats to the arrows. I don't even think those bats have any robes. They're just kind of in underwear, but it worked out for them this time, so they take that without loss. Very nice. And it looks like the war between Asphodel and Man has already kicked off, or maybe Asphodel just kind of saw it coming, right, and struck first. So yeah, we have a Dryad here leading probably like a stealthy. Yeah, she's stealthy. The Centaur are stealthy. Ooh, there's 2 of them. So yeah, this is like a stealthy Centaur Dryad raiding group. And yeah, there is a defense here. Okay. This is looking like it's probably going to work out for Man, because they have a few casters here. Actually, no, they have a lot of casters here. My mistake. I forgot these wise men also definitely count. Yeah, they must have been given gems. Okay, no, maybe that guy must have been an Earth too. Because like, yeah, these guys aren't particularly fantastic casters, but doing like just a little bit of point buffing here, like some body ethereal got on these guys. There's some sacreds here. See, this guy has not been kitted out, which is fine. Like, yeah, using these guys as thugs is a bit questionable. Looks like there's an attack rear. Not a lot of bodyguards here for Man, although I do think it's going to work out for them, since luckily their sacreds decided to come back. Ooh, those are kind of close. Let's go dual colored squares here. That helps a little bit. So yeah, I think this is going to work out for them. One thing of note that I didn't realize is that the Dryads for Asphodel can't actually seduce. So that's a pretty big nerf as compared to Pangea, I would say. But it's good news for us, because that means we're not going to have a bunch of mages get seduced away, which is nice. So yeah, not like the cleanest win, but overall I'd say pretty good for Man. I would be happy with this result if I were them. Let's take a look at what they lost. Yeah, not much. Some Pegasus riders, no mages. Not a complete wipe for Asphodel's raiding group. One of the mages does get away, and a few Centaur, but still, that would hurt, I would say. Though certainly not the end of the world. I expect that Asphodel probably has, I don't know about a lot of raiding groups like that, because again, they might be gold starved, and I was just talking about how we weren't really seeing Atlantis, and then here's Atlantis attacking in. And there's not really a defense here. But let's take a look at what Atlantis is bringing to the table. So it looks like a good amount of these Coral Guard look like just mundane troops that aren't particularly impressive, although they don't even have great protection. The Glaive does do a lot of damage, but they don't have a very good attack skill, so that would probably be the best way to handle them. But certainly if they do connect, that's going to be pretty nasty. They do also have these poison barbs, one of the reasons that poison resistance is really important underwater. They also brought in a sea dragon. This is actually their pretender. Okay, so yeah, I know the monster chassis aren't always the most popular, and this guy is aquatic, so it's going to be a little difficult to get him onto land, especially since he doesn't have a body slot, since one of the items that you normally use to get onto land requires a body slot. But I believe there's a miscellaneous slot that'll let you do the trick. And of course there's like plenty of lake for him to stomp around in. And then there's a good amount of mage support here. Wow, water 6, king of the deep. That is pretty impressive. Water magic is important underwater, although no gems here really for any of these fellows. And not much in the way of bodyguards either. Of course, I don't think there's much, if any, flying underwater. So it's like less of a concern, I think, in terms of, getting your mages sniped from attack rear shenanigans. But still, anytime there's no bodyguards on the mages, that makes me a little nervous. But of course, they are going to be able to take that from minimal province defense without any issue. And then we have some battles for us. Okay, so this is our problem solver, probably going up against light to medium PD. Bakemono. That's not great. Also, we're in the dark. Wait, but we have Spirit Sight, right? Excellent. Yes, we do. So this should be no problem for us, right? Famous last words. Our extremely overkitted thug going for the attack rear, and then the Bakemono are killing themselves on the fire shield. Very nice. I don't think we actually take a hit from that. Mirror image is quite helpful. So yeah, our problem solver solving problem. And this is our this is our assault. Okay. So normally I would say these rock throwers are going to be really dangerous, but I don't think they have very long range. Yeah. So in this case, I think it's actually a good thing that there's these rock throwers, because we're not actually really planning on sending anyone inside. There is a lot in here. I did not realize there was these gigantes in here. So this is definitely pretty dangerous, especially because these guys are berserkers. But we should be able to route off a bunch of the other stuff. And then we have some bugs for cover. So it's going to take them not that long to cut through 2 swarm casts. But you can see like almost immediately, right, some of these mages, especially because Phlegra has a lot of questionably motivated units, shall we say. So I think, we're going to get decent results, but probably our Golem is going to get sent home. He should be making some horrors here. Yeah, okay, I see one appearing there. Unfortunately, we kind of need a horror as like a front line. Also, these Mouflons are hanging out longer than I was expecting. Yeah, and then here's a super combatant fellow. Okay, interesting. So it looks like Phlegra probably picked this up, I'm guessing. Either that or Phlegra also has Construction 8, because this is a legendary item. And interestingly also, this guy has a Ring of Returning. Of course, that's what we have on our guy. And there's quite a bit in here. I think we're probably going to need to use a real army. This went okay, although, Phlegra does have to kill off all of the horrors before they can actually be declared the winner, I guess. Because we've lost everything. But this fellow probably can kill a Gortide. Normally, I would say that there isn't really anything else here that could kill a Gortide. And he may have routed off. I'm not sure. I saw him fly away. And this is exactly the kind of situation that we want. But we'll see. There go the Mouflon. They, like I said, they lasted longer than I expected against Wailing Winds. And Gortides are just a real hassle. We got lucky with that roll, because of course it's, kind of random what horrors come in. Looks like there's a Petrified that went off. Yeah, I think he got Petrified again, or possibly just paralyzed. If he's getting Petrified, there's definitely some risk there, because he has to, survive a magic resistance check or die. But realistically, that's probably the only way that they're going to be able to get rid of this guy, and it is looking like this is going to work out for us, although I don't think that we get the fort. I don't know what the rules are for that. If the horrors take it, maybe it's just like a neutral empty fort that we'll have to re-crack and then storm and it'll be empty. I don't know. It'll be interesting. But regardless, it is definitely good that there isn't going to be a bunch of stuff in here that our army has to fight. And so it wasn't perfect. We did lose Shaman, which was fine. That was kind of throwaway. And our Golem did get sent home relatively quickly. So like that's not ideal. But Gore-Tide Horror for the win. I guess he also has to clear out the wall. Actually, the wall guys, not against 50% regeneration. But I was maligning them with their boulders, but once you get close, that's pretty dangerous. So yeah, Marignon attacked Flegra, and then end of statement. No one won. The horrors win. So yeah, we'll see what the status is for that fort after the jump. And then we have some unexpected events. At least some of these are going to be barbarian attacks. Okay. So yeah, this is our invasion of the troll lands. So I think we're going to get a battle there. Forces of nature, that's unexpected. So we're probably going to lose that province. It's fine. We have a problem solver. This is really nice. Although I don't know if this province is any good, but still 400% tax. Can't argue with that, especially with all the misfortune that we have. This is more like what we're used to. So we lose some tax somewhere else. And then an ill omen, that's fine. And then we get attacked in 2 places. So of course there's the one time I'm ready for barbarian attacks. I put some province defense where we were expecting. I don't get attacked always with these monster boars. This is, I don't know, starting to get suspicious maybe. There are people that can cast that spell. I don't know if there's any of them that are in our game currently, any factions that can do that, but I feel like this province has been hit by monster boars before. So we do have some barbarians here, but this is a lot of stuff for them to deal with, and like there's like caster support and everything, so we lose this province. I feel like again I may have to look into like where this is and what is, maybe there's some site or something going on there. This battle we were expecting. This is against the trolls, and like there's a lot of trolls here, but they do have a weakness to fire. Ooh, interesting. This troll has fear. That's not great. And he also comes with a bunch of gems. Also not great. So yeah, we'll see how this goes. We got some swarm, our security bugs, and then we have solar eclipse, like all the normal stuff. We've seen these kind of armies, and some fire casting. These trolls have already been set on fire. Here's some crossbow bolts. They don't have any shields, and some of them have good protection, but others don't. And then trolls don't have good skills. Ugh. Oh, Curse of Stones, that's fine. I thought that would be armor destruction, which wouldn't be fantastic, because we're heavily armored. We rely on that. But yeah, we slaughter some trolls. So we'll see what we get off this. Hopefully we can actually, we'll get the route here, so we don't even have to worry about killing the troll commander. He'll just route off. So that works out for us pretty well. Yeah, we only lose 2 flagellants and 1 knight, so definitely I'd say it's a worthy trade, but we haven't actually gotten anything. I'm pretty sure this will trigger an event next turn. So we'll see if it's worth the trouble. And then let's see, we're sitting on top of a fort. This is the fort I think that the horror sort of took. And it says that the defenders are tearing it down faster, or the defenders are building it up faster than we can tear it down. So I'm assuming that's the wall guards that regenerated. So Flegra still owns the fort, I'm thinking. Anyway, we'll find out soon enough, but we'll have to move the Eagles back in to recrack it for a 3rd time. So yeah, I don't know about this Horror Harmonica Golem as using him as a storm group. It's definitely been efficient in the sense that it's let our armies move forward, and we haven't really risked a whole lot. Like, we didn't lose a bunch of units. Like, that would be kind of a nasty storm if we just slammed our army into what was inside of there. But from like a time standpoint, it's been pretty inefficient because we've been sitting on top of this fort for like at least 3 turns. Part of that problem is I keep pulling the Eagles off, right, rather than just leaving them on. All right, if we left them on, then the fort would still be breached, and we could just send the Eagles in immediately. But like I said, I don't really want the Eagles to be fighting if there's a Gore-Tide Horror loose, because the Eagles wouldn't be able to kill that either, and then we'd lose a bunch of Eagles. So yeah, it's just, right, like it's hard for anyone to work with the Horror Harmonica Golem. He's best left to his own devices. So we'll see if we utilize him, right, in these other storms, because we have breached both of those other forts. So yeah, we'll see. We might do a little bit of scrying. We might poke our heads inside first, because I know at least Nazca had quite a bit of stuff in it. I'll have to look and see if the other fort has anything. And of course our patrollers removing some unrest, and I'll catch you guys after the cut. All right, this is the situation and what we're doing about it. I would say this game has officially gotten to the complicated stage of things. So let's talk Falegra here in the north. We are storming just with our army here. Not ideal, but our storming force got popped home because of the ring returning. He is teleporting out on top of Nazca. Nazca, we are just going to poke in with our friar. Our friar. He's just going to see what we're up against, mostly just because we don't really need to. I think, the Horror Harmonica Golem is going to be reasonably effective regardless of what's in there, or at least not that risky. But anyway, so this fort we have more time for, and there's more stuff in it. And then we saw this massive stack of Helit Axe Warriors being led by a Tyrant. There's also quite a few Sages in here, so possibly full mage commitment with this army. And while we're not too worried about the Helit Warriors, again, like mage commitment is a bit of a wild card, and I mean, that is a lot of stuff. So we would prefer to deal with this fort and reload on gems most particularly. We do have some reloads here, so not the end of the world, but yeah, it would just be nice to be in a stronger position in order to face off against this. It's also possible this is headed in Ulm's direction, and or maybe he just wants to sit in this throne and defend that. Otherwise, our third army here kind of needs to respect, right? This isn't really like a full army. We have a lot less stuff and a lot fewer mages here, so we can't really take this province here because we might bump into this and lose to it. So instead, we're just going to combine it with this army. We'll probably need the extra numbers, or it'll at least reduce casualties if we have more troops in this army. And then also, just in case the storm fails, we will have something sitting on top of the fort to prevent it from becoming unsieged. And then, of course, this fort is still untaken, but we are moving our eagles out along with like some reinforcing knights here that we've collected in this province. We do need to not exactly worry about Xibalba, but just be aware that, right, once we end our non-aggression pact, and or like they could theoretically end it, unlikely but possible, we don't want to leave this area completely undefended. Also related to that, yes, always concerns. Speaking of, they are making quicker progress here than I was expecting, perhaps doing a better job of raiding. I thought maybe they had coalesced, absolutely everything into this. This certainly is a massive stack, but it looks like they're doing a pretty good job of raiding, other territory of Pelagia's. So it might have just been a case where before they weren't confident enough because Pelagia, potentially had some good counter raiding answers, and now perhaps resistance is starting to crumble, especially since they're getting hit by a 2v1, and this is a sub taking over kind of not a great position, shall we say. So yeah, I think this is a rough war for Pelagia, and it's maybe going to close out, I was saying something like 10 turns a turn or two ago, and now it's looking like maybe a little less. Particularly for Yis, right? It really depends on, how much Yis is planning on giving up to Atlantis. They do have clearly a somewhat weird border, right? Because this fort from Yis is really sticking in to Atlantis's territory. So I think either they're about to start fighting, or just based off conversations with Pelagia, they're just tight allies, and so a weird border like this isn't such a big deal because they're each planning on going to the land afterwards and doing the underwater hug, as they call it. So we'll see. Our scouts are going to try to continue to keep an eye on that. I definitely have not reached out to Yis. I just might not at this point. I hate the Diplo, and ignoring Yis has worked out for us so far, and it's worked out for Yis. So I think probably the play is to just leave a bunch of scouts kind of along our border, and as soon as I start to see like raiding parties pop up that Yis is probably expecting, to not be seen, we'll just attack instead and hopefully beat them to the punch. I do think we're big enough, and with Gateway and everything, we'll be able to mount some kind of defense. I mean, don't get me wrong, it'll be a really major war. But at this point, we have pretty significant reserves. That said, the Cloud Trapeze attacks, we won't really be able to see that coming. So that could be a problem. They could definitely blanket our lands with a lot of thugs, which would be less than ideal. So we'll see. Still back and forth on that. Speaking of back and forth, there is the Asphodel situation. So, just some game chat. I think the Ulm player is very enthusiastic, and I think they mean well, but perhaps a little on the boastful side. And Asphodel pointed out that they're currently, facing a 3v1 with one of the worst nations in the game, and which made me feel a little bit bad about being the fourth knife plunging in. And then I remembered Strongdale. So I think we're probably still going to go forward with this, but there is something to be said for just letting these other powers exhaust themselves against Asphodel, right? The critical thing is that Asphodel absolutely cannot be allowed to win this war. If they win this war, that's going to be really, really bad news for us. On the other hand, a really grindy war for these other fairly large powers, right? With another large power, right? A slow victory for them would in some ways kind of work out even better for us. So, while I do want Asphodel gone and I would like their territory, of course, I'm now starting to wonder, should we really jump in immediately? The other thing too is that if we don't jump in immediately, that also means that, right, Yis will just have more forces around to convince Yis to go elsewhere. On the other hand, forces are already in motion kind of thing. We're, doing a ton of recruitment down here. His turn is rolled, so can't change that. Don't really want to change that. We'll probably still end the non-aggression pact relatively soon, but the other question is what are we going to do in the meantime? The Phlegra thing will take us a little while longer, definitely, especially now that it looks like Ulm isn't really pushing as hard. And since Ulm is more confident of victory, and we know that Man is joining the war. Right before, I thought it was just a 1v1. Wow, okay, Vanheim still counts. That's the other thing too. Vanheim is larger than I realized and has more resources to draw on than I realized. So they're not in a good situation, but they're not in as bad of a situation as I thought. So I was kind of more looking at this as Ulma's in a 1v1 with a pretty large power piloted by an excellent player. But now it's, it is a 3v1, so it's looking a lot more likely Asphodel won't triumph here. So in that case, I have to worry less about, keeping Ulm afloat, right? That's part of the reason that we didn't push hard against the throne, because I didn't want Ulm to redirect, forces to try to snap up more of Phlegra's territory. But at this point, it's kind of looking like, well, they're going to be really busy, but hopefully Man will keep them afloat. I don't know. We see some deep raiding from Ulm, but it's hard to say. We need more scouts over here, definitely. But I do think we should try to pick up this throne, definitely, at this point. And then possibly also Phlegra's capital. That'll also put us decently close to this throne. And, thrones is the name of the game. So we certainly have more work to be doing here. And then, of course, Jabalba. But that shouldn't take us all that long. And I think realistically, it's not going to keep all of our forces occupied. We don't, I guess we could have more armies up here, but I don't know. It feels a bit of a waste, right? It'd be like using an army per province or whatever. So what are we going to do with other armies? And then, of course, that brings us, to Eriu. And long story short, I just don't want a 1v1 Eriu. Now, granted, they are still fighting Agartha, but Agartha is so small, I don't think it's going to be that long before they're gone. Having Ulm and hopefully Man as a potential counterweight to Eriu, as potential allies would be really useful. And that's perhaps an argument against letting those two exhaust themselves against Asphodel, because the other thing that could potentially happen is as they exhaust themselves, Eriu is going to see oh wow, these borders have been completely drained of troops. Probably Ulm, I feel would be I don't know. It's hard to say. They could go after either of these players. So while my expectation was that they go after Shiniyama next, as far as I know, Shiniyama is unoccupied right now. So in some ways, these other powers are more attractive. And of course, the other big elephant in the room is that Eriu is a big air nation, and we have no shock resistance on our bless, which we're going to have to cross that bridge at some point, absolutely. But do we need to cross it right now? No, we have other options. So I don't think Eriu will be our next target. Still not 100% sure what we're going to do, but probably move on Asphodel still, but maybe not quite as quickly as I was planning. to let this no doubt very bloody war, continue to grind along. In terms of more concrete plans, the Wolf Cannon is currently going down here to provide like some patrollers. We'll probably start shifting the Thug, more over towards Asphodel. At least that was the plan. Otherwise, most of this is site searching. We are using one of our witch hunters along with some paladins to clear out this business. I'll have to take a look at the history and try to figure out, because I feel like this isn't the first time that we've been attacked like this by these type of monsters. I suspect there's a fertility cult or something there. And then our pretender is going to be doing some transmuting. Finally, I think we have enough of a bank of fire gems here that we can start to utilize them. We're going to do 37 just to make an easy comparison against what we did before, because now we have the Alchemist Stone. So, you could work it out certainly, but I just want to have an easy comparison point. That's also like roughly our fire. In fact, yeah, there you go. It is 37. We must have lost, yep, right here. Because I was going to say, I could have sworn it was at 38. But no, so it works out that we are actually only getting 37 fire gems a turn anyway. Again, it's probably more efficient to do larger casts, so this will probably be the last time that we do like a 37 cast. We'll maybe let like 2 or 3 turns of income build up, especially since our pretender has other things to do, which is exactly why it's more inefficient to use like the smaller number of gems. Lamia Queens, probably going to be the next order of business, and maybe some blood stuff. This army is going to continue to investigate the halls of the Mountain King, and hopefully we will get our payday next turn. And I'm pretty sure we're forging an artifact this turn, but well, you can tell it's really important because I absolutely, for the life of me, cannot remember what it is. So we'll just have to check the item inventory next turn. Oh, hey, and we're finally, oh no, we already started upgrading Bandar Log some time ago. Excellent. So that'll finish next turn. What a pleasant surprise. And of course, that will be important considering, we might be fighting we might be fighting Asphodel in the not too distant future. So I'm sure I've missed something in all of this madness, but that more or less covers turn 62.